This next question, Mr. Haddad, Mr. Salinas, we will start with you. Should available funds be spent on new large-scale flood projects or on fixing maintenance issues on the existing systems?
I think I think we don't have to overhaul the massive systems we already have. We have the funding to repair a lot of what we have. So the funding that we need to bring forward for, you said flooding infrastructure?
Yes, so when it comes to large-scale flooding projects, do you want to focus on spending funding on current projects or fixing existing system issues?
Well, I know how much backlog is. I understand how much backlog is. We're just talking about the unified plan. That's a 20-year thing. These infrastructure projects, they don't come in overnight. So what we have to do is, it's a little bit of both, but I think the majority of what it is take what we have, improve it, and then also put in different new projects into developments where we're at high risk. We're at a 100-year floodplain here, where we need to basically take that. We have massive amounts of billions of dollars in damages every single year because of flooding. And what we need to do is be really strategic with where and how fast our funding can get to places like these. So find the vulnerable areas, make sure that they're taken care of, repair our existing systems, and continue on from there.
Thank you, Mr. Holguin.
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Yes, absolutely. So should available funds be spent on new large-scale flood projects or on fixing maintenance issues in existing systems?
I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I don't think it has to be a choice of either or. I think we could, again, work with our federal government to get infrastructure funding down to ensure we fix our drainage system, so that way, the way we saw the flash floods happen last year over on the east side of Hidalgo County don't happen again, where a lot of people got displaced for their homes. We could do both, as long as we're being smart with our resources, getting federal dollars, doing public-private partnerships wherever we can to get some of this fixed. We have a lot that we can do. We just got to be creative and responsible with how we spend our dollars.
Thank you, Mr. Haddad.
The answer is it depends. So you have to look at the overall needs, and you have to create a list of which areas need mitigation, which areas we need expansion, and which areas need remediation. And at that point, you prioritize those. You put them in a list of critical, necessary, low priority, and by doing that, you're able to determine where you need to allocate your funds to have the greatest impact on the community. And I think that's really where you measure it. Which one of the solutions is going to have the greatest impact on the surrounding community or our water issues as a whole. We have to remember that a lot of the systems that are connected are really owned by the irrigation districts, who are open canals, cracked, have not been updated since the 20s. And so it's very difficult because a lot of times the municipalities are the ones providing the push water for those systems into the larger scale systems that the county typically manages. And so you have to work with the county and the surrounding cities from a regional standpoint, because a lot of times cities will say, we have flooding over here and we have flooding over here, but everyone's working disconnected and setting dollars aside for projects that could be better aligned if they focused and they look at it together from a regional plan, from a regional flooding plan. Address the issues in that regard, and you'll have the greatest impact on your local community.
Thank you. This next set of questions is going to focus on the border, immigration, and public safety. So Mr. Holguin, we'll start with you for this next one. District 41 residents live the realities of border policy every day. How do you distinguish between border security rhetoric and policies that improve safety and the quality of life for residents?
Can you say the question one more time?
Yes, so how do you distinguish between border security rhetoric and policies that can improve safety and quality of life for residents?
Yeah, so rhetoric, I'm sorry, am I understanding?
Yes,
Border
yes.
security.
So essentially, like, how are you able to ensure, because a lot of the times when it comes to border security, there's a lot of rhetoric versus the actual policies,
Got it.
right?
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No worries.
A lot of the rhetoric that we see at the national level is very harmful to the policies that are being, is very harmful to our communities. A lot of the work I do is on also immigration policies. And so we can be smart about protecting our border, but we don't have to be cruel and inhumane the way we're seeing right now. We see Operation Lone Star having been in effect for a number of years, costing $5 billion and being a huge strain on our resources here in Texas. That's something that I just don't support. You know, we can have responsible immigration reform, but we just have to be humane about how we treat our community. And so we're looking right now what ICE is doing to our communities, and it is absolutely abhorrent, inhumane, cruel, and probably flat out illegal. And so we have to make sure that federal government, that state government is not acting as immigration control offices in the state of Texas. Right now we see Greg Abbott using state agencies to act as immigration reform, not just DPS, but also Texas Health and Human Services Commission, Texas License Department and Regulation, where they're basically saying, hey, if you want your barber's license renewed, you got to show us that you're a U.S. citizen. If you want to get your food benefits, you got to show us that you're a U.S. citizen. If you want to get housing, you got to show us proof of legal residency. And so we're seeing a lot of very cruel policies being enacted by the state government, and we need to do a lot to stop that.
Thank you, Mr. Haddad.
Yeah, so border security, border infrastructure, investment in border infrastructure is really border security. That is why at the city of McAllen, we have invested over $85 million at the Ansel Lewis Bridge. Because when you're providing solutions that are tech-based, new technology, new resources for our law enforcement and our CBP, that allows the economy and the relationship between Mexico to continue, while also providing the needs of the security at the border. And our neighbors here in the region, we benefit, everyone in this room benefits greatly from the daily crossings. Yet we don't have the burden of providing trash and sewer, street maintenance, lighting to all of those people that come over and spend their dollars here in the United States. We have a huge economic impact, but we have to remember these people are also our families. These people are our neighbors. This is the community. We are a border town, and we're a proud border town. And so I always try to focus on border infrastructure as providing border security to get the state to understand that they need to invest in our ports of crossing. They need to invest in infrastructure on those regards, because that helps us drive more people over here. That incentivizes the industries to utilize our crossings, and that keeps our relationship with Mexico and the people crossing over in a positive light. But I do believe that a lot of the national rhetoric has bled down, and unfortunately our region is highlighted in a negative manner.
Thank you. Mr. Salinas.
When it comes to border policy down here, what we have to understand is that right now, the rhetoric and the policy are one now. It is whatever it is decreed by Tom Homan, Kristi Noem, and the federal government, Donald Trump, Greg Abbott. They have created a rogue federal system, a rogue immigration system from a federal government that's gone rogue. And the state government has been completely complicit in this thing. It's no longer just about rhetoric anymore. It's no longer about just the $6 billion. It's $6 billion for Operation Lone Star, ballooning to $11 billion. It is about SB 8. It is about the bill that would deputize our local law enforcement to do the laws, to enforce federal immigration laws when they should be protecting and serving our community. It's about the buoys. It's about these things that we need to be fighting against. I have been proudly fighting against a lot of these massive encroachments upon our civil rights at a time when Alex Preddy, Nicole Good, Liam Ramos, all of these people, and millions of people being stripped of their constitutional rights. This is the time to say, ICE, get out.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question. Mr. Haddad, we'll start with you. At what point can the government legally mandate that protesters disperse even if they are not directly engaged in violence?
At what point?
Yes, at what
Well,
point?
I would say if they can legally protest, they should be allowed to protest. I think protesting and, to some extent, vocalizing your beliefs and what you feel is happening in the nation is a right of all. You know, unless it becomes completely disruptive to general operations of society to some extent, it could be tempered a bit, but I don't believe that people should be scared to protest. I don't believe people should be told they shouldn't or cannot protest. I think protesting is a right. We've seen very strong protests in the city of McAllen just in the last 3 months, and all of them incredibly peaceful, incredibly in cooperation with local police departments. And I'd like to see our region and our local community engaged in sort of that type of civic action. It's good to see it. I think we a lot of times felt that we weren't connected to it, or that maybe we didn't have an impact. But it's positive, because if people are protesting, then they truly believe they do have an impact, and we need people to believe that things can get better and will get better. And so, no, I would say people should have the right to protest in all regards.
Mr. Salinas?
Do not quote me on whether or not this is true or not, but I believe I might be the only candidate here that's been tear gassed during a protest disbursement. And I can tell you the overreach of the state government has been incredible. The protests at college campuses have remained mostly peaceful, but have been exacerbated by the state government coming in with horses and basically bayonets. We're looking at a massive encroachment upon freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of protest. We have the right to redress our grievances with the state government. And I have been in the front lines of protests, and I have been inside of the Capitol during one, while things are happening. So all this to say is that maybe there are some times where, you know, as soon as we start disrupting the peace, that's when things can be dispersed. But right now, it doesn't seem to be the conversation that's going on all across the country. What's going on across the country is overreach by the governments in doing those things. The top priority of the federal, state, local law enforcement is to protect the people. And what is happening over here in these areas just isn't protecting the people.
Thank you. Mr. Holguin?
So the state should not interfere with any peaceful protest whatsoever. That's the bottom line. It is our constitutional right to protest, and Greg Abbott should not decide whenever he doesn't like what people are saying. What we're seeing right now, where Greg Abbott is targeting school districts who are allowing their students to protest, getting a specific commissioner in the Texas Education Agency to investigate teachers who participate or encourage protesting to strip them of their credentials, is just absolutely disgusting and abhorrent. Everyone should have a right to protest, voice their opinion, and that right should not be decided on one person or a few people who are just basically big crybabies right now because they're being called out for what they're doing to our communities. And so yeah, state should not be interfering with any protest whatsoever.
Thank you. Moving on to the next set of questions. These focus on representation, accountability, and values. Mr. Salinas, we'll start with you for this one. How will you ensure that District 41 has a strong voice in legislative decision-making in Austin?
Well, first things first, I have an open door policy. I have an open door policy if ever at the state capitol or in the district office there is something that needs to be done, addressed, and grievances need to be redressed, I'm going to be there. And I'm going to direct all of my staff to make sure that I know what's going on in the community when it happens. That is one of the biggest things that we need to do. We also need to make clear that we should be accountable to the people. We should be accountable to the people, not just the wealthy corporations who fund campaigns. One of the biggest things that I supported throughout the last year, last cycle, was the McAllen McAllen anti-corruption bill, Prop A and Prop B, referendums, expanding transparency, and also lowering the amount that individuals can do. That is something that I not only want to do at the local level, but at the state level, where it is a much bigger issue when we don't have any caps on what individuals or entities, that includes PACs, that are putting money into these campaigns. That is something that I want to be able to do. To redress the people is to be able to say them in the face that I am for you. I am taking no corporate PAC money. I have managed to raise a good deal of amount with small donors at a time. We need all the help that we can get to make a big difference everywhere that we go. That is my policy, and I will continue that policy.
Thank you. Mr. Holguin.
Yeah, so as your next state representative, I promise to continue to have town halls and roundtable discussions and have an open door policy where you will have direct access to me. And through my work, I've already had numerous town halls here in Hidalgo County on school vouchers, on that big ugly bill that was unfortunately passed last year, on economic prosperity. Through my campaign side, I took questions for 2 hours on a range of issues, having a town hall. And so I would like to change the culture here in the Valley where elected officials participate in town halls and hear what you have to say. You know, I look at Congresswoman Monica de la Cruz, for example, who has been an absolute disaster in accountability to her constituents, to where she only has telephone town halls and doesn't allow anyone to ask questions. I will be the total opposite of that. You should be allowed to ask questions, ask the tough questions, ask why we voted a certain way, ask why we're accepting certain dollar contributions. I am not funded by corporate PACs, I'm not getting corporate PAC money. I'm a grassroots candidate just as well. And so I encourage you, go to the Texas Ethics Commission and see who's donating to who and make your decision there. We're about to release our personal finance reports, so that way you can see what our financial details look like. Those have to be handed over to the state. And so this is an opportunity to get someone in this position who's going to be held accountable to you and someone who has experience of actually taking questions for extended periods of time, so that way you have the answers that you need and there's no more wish-washing about what we're doing up in the Texas legislature.
Thank you. Mr. Haddad.
And so government accountability and transparency has always been important to me. That's something that I even ran on in 2019 for the city of McAllen, and now have 6 years of history showing that that is exactly what I do. I've held town halls, I hold meetings with HOAs. If the community calls me, I answer back. I try to answer each and every single text, email, or call. And even from a professional standpoint, I'm a 20-year community banker. You don't build a successful career in community banking without answering your phone. I answer the call of each and every client, and we try to get back to anyone that reaches out. That is just built into who I am. And I know some of the legislature have been, we've heard some criticism that after session, they don't come back, they don't engage the community. And that is a commitment that I have made because I have heard that. I said, at the city of McAllen, we don't operate 6 months every 2 years. We operate 365, 24/7. And so I've always been available and committed to the community, at their doors when they need me. And I'm with them to discuss any and all topics that they want to discuss. We might not always agree, but I will always ensure that I'm accessible and available. And when it comes to transparency, we've done things at the city of McAllen, like ensuring that our reports were put on the website when previously they were not. People would have to go make a PIR, go dig them up. We said, put them on the website to make sure people they can see that their elected officials are transparent.
Thank you. Mr. Holguin, we'll start with you for this next question. How do you stay accountable to constituents between elections? And how would you handle disagreements or criticisms from your district?
So you stay accountable by constantly engaging with the community. Like I said, having town halls, having roundtable discussions, not through a telephone where we would be protected from any tough questions. And also, you show up to people's doors. This election cycle, I've knocked on almost 3,000 doors by myself. And I cannot tell you the level of anger that is happening right now because people are not happy with the way things are going, the way their lives has just been going downhill. And so that is something that's within my nature, is to constantly be engaging with people, keep my ear to the ground. Through my work, I engage with a lot of organizations, including Lupe, La Unión de Pueblo Entero, Project Vida, which we do a lot of support for, Community Homes in South Texas, Su Clinica. So I've already been doing a lot of work with local organizations and hearing what they have to say, and what they have to say, I implement that into the policies that I'm trying to pass up in Congress and up in the Texas legislature. This also includes CPLC, Chicanos por la Causa, and Avance on early childhood education. And so you're looking at someone who isn't just showing up to people's doors, who isn't just showing up doing town halls and roundtable discussions, but also working with organizations that I'm sure quite a few of you are very familiar with, who are ingrained here in the community. And so I'm going to be a full, 360 accessible state representative to ensure that your voice is actually being heard. And I know that sounds cheesy, but it's very true, and it's something that I've been doing.
Thank you. Mr. Haddad?
Yes, I think it's being present and accessible. Those are two simple things, and that's done through a manner of ways that have been mentioned, through town halls, through continuous discussions, by answering the phone, holding forums, or even at some point probably engaging people who might not have be able to get to you. We'll do some Zoom calls and ensure that we engage in that regard too. But we have to ensure that we get either in front of the people in person, or we try to hold larger forums digitally if that engages more and more people given today's technology. Obviously, we want to always relay information that's happening at the state down to the citizenry and let them know what is happening and what we're working on. And disagreements is how you also get some things done. You have to engage your constituents, know where they stand, what they care about, what they feel you might have done wrong. That's how you learn as well, and you learn how to move forward in that regard, is by listening to your constituents and seeing how you can improve as well. Because I don't ever believe that I know everything or that I can accomplish everything, but I make a commitment to listen to them and make my best effort to follow in the needs that they're looking to accomplish or what's important to them.
Thank you. Mr. Salinas?
You're gonna have to repeat the question?
Yes, no worries. So how do you stay accountable to constituents between elections, and how would you handle disagreements or criticism from your district?
I'll put it like this. The state legislature, every single time that it goes to, is, you have an election every 2 years. One of my major goals in this campaign will be to be, one of my major goals in this campaign and as state legislature, as your state legislator, will be to be within the community and fight every single day to make sure that we get people elected who have the same values that the people have, and these values are of accountability. These are values of transparency and of changing the way that we look at politics in the Rio Grande Valley. Unfortunately, we're staring down the barrel of the same old. This is the policies that have been killing this economy. These are the same policies that have been going down the path of us as Democrats losing these regions because we haven't shown up. We haven't been able to be transparent, and we haven't been accountable to the people. So my goal is to rebuild a lot of what has been lost in the last election. We rebuild it by talking to the folks within the party, but not only that, but within different organizations that can build up the organizational efforts to make sure that our voices in the Rio Grande Valley cannot be ignored. And that's what I think is happening right now.
Thank you. Mr. Haddad, you'll start for this next question. What does success look like after your first term, and how should voters measure whether you have truly delivered for the district?
Well, I think there's always a focus on what dollars did you drive down to the region, what investments or projects were you able to get the state to invest in that will help the area progress. That's the obvious, but I think a lot of it is how we protect public education, how we fight against what's happening at the border, how we ensure that this area remains an area of strong voice with dignity and respect at the state legislature. I think those are critical items. And one thing I've learned at the city of McAllen is we, at one point when I first came in, used to monitor about 100 bills that sort of directly affected certain things. We now have the city attorney's office monitoring over 300 to 400 bills each year because we're looking at it from a broader perspective, and we're not only looking at things that we need, we're looking at things that we have to fight against. And some of the biggest victories is what you stop, not actually what you bring down. And so you have to look at it from that regard, because there are thousands and thousands of bills filed and only a few pass. And a lot of times the biggest victory is what you never hear about. It's what we stopped. And so I think you need someone up there that understands that, has done the work, has monitored bills and worked with the state delegation to ensure that our priorities are heard and that they're met.
Thank you, Mr. Salinas.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more with the fact that right now, as it is, our community is under attack. Our successes can be measured by what we've stopped through the legislature. But I can tell you this, I'm the only candidate in this race that has passed, that has killed bills through the legislature through reading the rules and procedures. I have managed to, I have a deep understanding of the rules, procedures, the rules, procedures, and precedent going through the legislature. I'll give you this example. SJR 87 was a bill that was trying to pass through the legislature that would deny bail to all undocumented immigrants. It was a travesty of a bill. Many, unfortunately, of this delegation in Dog County voted for it. But it was a bill that needed 100 votes to pass through the legislature because it was an SJR. This bill procedurally had one tiny hiccup that I managed to exploit, and that was something that I immediately called the House Democratic Caucus office and said, you need to do this. You need to do this. And that phone call delayed that bill for at least 2 years. I'm gonna fight in the next session, and I assume I'm gonna fight in the next session after that. But the successes that we build upon that, we can also, as a person who's worked in the legislature, I've helped bring funds to the economy, and I've helped bring legislation passed, including a Small Business Saturday bill that saw the first Saturday of every month as Small Business Saturday.
Thank you. Time. Mr. O'Keefe.
Yeah, so there's this story that your success is measured as a freshman legislator, that you're not going to get any bills done. I reject that. I've been part of getting numerous bills done through coalitions and also directly as well as an advocate on the advocate side. I've helped kill bills back in 2021 whenever they were trying to raise minority civil rights icons like Dr. Hector B. Garcia and Martin Luther King from our textbooks. I've helped fight against the school voucher scam. So yes, we can stop bills where we can, and then we could also make advances where we can. So again, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. What I also view as success is also what kind of coalitions are you building? Who are you working with? What kind of organizations do you have relationships with to help you advance those priorities? I have relationships with organizations on education, on healthcare, on housing. It's how I've gotten a lot of this work done and actually gotten bills signed into law. So coming out of the legislature, yes, we want to have those wins on funding for the district. We want to have some bills done. We want to stop the harmful stuff. But what are we doing to prepare for the next session where we're going to be a little bit more senior and have a little bit more say in the legislature? We cannot come in this alone with just our local delegation. It requires a lot of people to get bills across the finish line, because guess what? Those people are going to be the ones going office to office to office, like I have numerous times, to get your legislation across the finish line. So it's coalition building as well.
Thank you. This next question, Mr. Salinas, will start with you. In 2023, HB 8 changed community college funding from being based on enrollment numbers to performance-based funding. Has this changed positively or negatively impacted community college funding and success rates?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that we're looking at performance-based funding for certain schools in higher education. I think has been a failure. I think we're seeing what it does not account for. HBCUs that, for example, have been historically targeted under such regimes and such doctrines in law. I think there are a lot of schools like UTRGV and STC who are largely majority Hispanic and has a very large population of poor folks enrolled in these systems, have been not conducive to a lot of performance-based things. So when we need to change in SB 8, is I think that we need to make sure that we're accounting for said things, accounting for certain changes in the way that we look at things. And that's the way that I'm gonna be fine with it.
Mr. Levine?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, absolutely. In 2023, HBA changed community college funding from being based on enrollment numbers to performance-based funding. So has this change positively or negatively impacted community college funding and success rates?
To be quite honest, this is something that I would need to look more into. And that's one of the things that you do as a legislator. You're not gonna know every single subject and know the answer to everything. That's where coalitions come in to do that work, to help educate you on this perspective. So it is working with the STC board, working with UTRGV, working with TSTC, even though they're over on the Cameron County side, and hearing what kind of impacts they're having, what kind of impacts those funding decisions are having on their institution. And that's what I come to bring to you all. Direct honesty. Sometimes I'm not going to know full well on the impact of a certain bill, but I do promise to do better, to listen to the people who are being impacted, and making sure whenever decisions are being made, that they're being made with me having had heard directly from the people that are being impacted by it.
Thank you. Mr. Haddad?
Yes. So the first thing you want to do is obviously reach out to the presidents and the trustees of the higher ed in the institutions to determine what their needs are and how they see the funding be most impactful. Because you do not want the institutions of higher learning to have to change how they operate to continue to figure out how to acquire the funding. That could be taken away from the caliber and the quality of the class or structure that they're already providing. And obviously, every institution operates in a different environment. Some in lower income, some in rural, some in highly urban, dense, higher income areas. And so it would lead to advantages and disadvantages for the funding mechanisms. Some of them would struggle more to meet some of these metrics that some other schools might not. And so I think on the surface level, you know, we see this bleeding a little bit into talks for even ISDs, and it causes a tremendous amount of disparity. So you've got to be careful that you're not undermining the institutions or the school systems that are having to provide a tremendous amount of more services to a different type of demographic.
Thank you. We have time for one last question, so Mr. Levine, we'll start with you. When it comes to STAR outcomes in Hidalgo County, consistently they trail state averages. So what is your plan to address academic gaps while also supporting bilingual education, special education, and at-risk students?
Yeah, so the STAR test, if you're not familiar with it, it's a standardized test, I'm sure a lot of you took it. They replaced it with another system where you do more testing at the beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year. We're testing our kids to death, and it's putting a lot of testing anxiety, mental health problems that we're seeing across the state with this testing. When it comes to bilingual education, if you look at PSJA has one of the best skill and biliteracy programs in the state, to where students are encouraged to ensure that they come out learning a second language, predominantly Spanish, so that way they get that on their high school diploma because they are able to read, write, and speak Spanish fluently. We need to expand that program across the state to ensure that all our ISDs, especially here in the Valley, are seal of biliteracy certified. And so there's a lot that we could do to protect, to do for our public education and also bilingual education. But seal of biliteracy is the future.
Thank you. Mr. Haddad?
We've gotten to where a lot of school systems are basically teaching the test. It's forcing us to go away from critical thinking or deeper personal skills that could be addressed with the kids and the students. I believe it's putting a lot of strain on both the teachers as well as the kids on taking these tests. So I think testing to some extent has to be rebalanced as to how we use it and how we use it as a measure for the schools. But it's similar to what we say where it's changing the way the school is operating, which is causing negative repercussions on the children. They're not actually retaining or learning more by testing more. And so, you know, we can see from a lot of different models, even if you look around the world, you see a lot of ISDs or school systems that get away for years, even in early ages, from testing at all. And they focus on other skills, and they focus on ways of socializing the kids and teaching them in ways that gain confidence, produce personality skills, so that when they start to enter a testing phase of education, they're a lot better suited and are able to handle it a lot better. So I do believe there's a tremendous amount of reform that is needed in that regard.
Thank you, Mr. Salinas.
I agree. One of the things that we need to do is get rid of the STAR test. That is a bill that was promised in the last session, and unfortunately that bill was, as Eric said, completely botched and split into three. And one of the biggest things that we need to make a big difference in terms of how we overhaul our bilingual education systems. This is something that affects me personally as a person who came into school only knowing Spanish. I could have been left behind. Your language development stops. Your language development, if you reach the 3rd grade and your language development hasn't reached a proficient score, you are at a high disadvantage. And this is a bill that Representative Bobby Guerra, hopefully my predecessor, has worked with and has passed through the state legislature. And I was really proud of that, and I want to continue in that work. Unfortunately, it did not pass through the Senate. We'll make sure to pass it through the Senate in the next one with my good friends, hopefully with Senator Taylor Burnett in the next session. And we'll see what we can do with that. We need to overhaul the way that we view education. And one of the biggest things that we're talking about in terms of AI is a fundamentals first approach, where the first part of the semester should be completely pen on paper, analog. Learn the fundamentals first before you can incorporate anything when it comes to AI or computer systems. That's something that I'm going to be working for in the state legislature, and I hope you join me.
Thank you. We're moving now on to closing statements. A reminder that closing statements are done by the order on ballot, and you'll have 2 minutes for closing statements. So, Mr. Haddad, we'll start with you.
Okay. Since I am closing first, I'll address a couple items that my opponents will likely defer to. We've had plenty of debates, and they try to dismiss some of the support that I've gained, but I continually mention it because I'm very proud of it. To gain the trust of the state delegation as well as the number of local leadership is very humbling, and they trust me for a reason, because I've been effective in office, I've worked with them, I've been at the state level, and I've been able to build coalitions, partnerships, and establish the right relationships to be effective. That is why they have entrusted in me. I commend the endorsements that my opponents have, but their endorsements are not accountable to the voters of Hidalgo County. Every single one of mine is, because that is who I have been working with. We have mentioned campaign finance. I have outraised almost all 5 opponents that I have between the other side and this side. And all of those have been by individuals, small businesses, some companies, doctors, attorneys, people in the community, but over 90% of my donations come from the Rio Grande Valley. 90+% of the donations from my opponents here at this table come from outside the Rio Grande Valley. It tells you who the Rio Grande Valley is supporting and who has built up the relationships within the community. I know I can be an effective representative, and I know I have a blended voting history, and I'm still here today fighting for you, knowing that I can be the strong fighter that this community needs. The Democratic leadership in Hidalgo County trusts me, the community trusts me, and now I'm asking you, the voter, to trust me, to give me the confidence of your vote, and I will represent you strongly at the State House. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Salinas, 2 minutes.
I don't attack anybody for the endorsements that they receive. All the power to them. One of the biggest things that we're looking at in this race is about our records and where we have stood on issues going back. It didn't take me 15 years to realize that what was happening in vouchers, that the Republicans were trying to make vouchers a thing. It didn't take me 15 years to know that they were trying to repeal Obamacare, that they were trying to get rid of a lot of these protections for our most vulnerable communities. It didn't take me that time because I've been fighting in this field. I've been in the trenches. When we are seeing new attacks upon this community, I have been there. I have made major strides towards an RGV that works for all of us. And I intend on making a big splash in that regard. We need leaders that we can trust, that we can say, hey, I know where you stand on issues. This isn't about a blended past. I don't care about a blended past. But when it comes down to 15 years straight Republican voting, only voting Democratic primary once, and then one time saying, okay, we're going to actually make a big difference. We're going to be the Democratic nominee. I just don't believe it. And to all of this is there is one person that can tout the same amount of things that you have. That's Mayor Villalobos. If Mayor Villalobos ran for state representative as a Democrat, he's a Republican. I'm sorry, I'm not voting for him. He has shown who he is. I have shown who I am. And I hope that you'll see throughout this campaign that as the youngest person in this race and the one with the most amount of experience and a son of the RGV, that I can make a big difference for all of us. I have built a coalition all across the entire state of endorsements from Dallas, Austin, Houston, Fort Worth, all these places that we need support in to bring the RGV values to the rest of the state.
Thank you, Mr.
And that's how we build an RGV that works for all.
That was time. Mr. Holguin, 2 minutes.
Yeah, so you hear a lot of talk about endorsements. I'm quite frankly tired of hearing about it. Endorsements are done through the back doors. You pay a consultant $20,000, and their job is to go get you endorsements as much as possible so they can validate you to the community. That's how RGV politics runs. I could give 2 shits about endorsements. I have been focused on talking to the people. That's why I knocked on 3,000 doors and talking to people and hearing the concerns of you and what you all are dealing with and how we could fight back against the atrocities going on. I come from a working class background. Those are the values that I'm going to bring to the state. I'm proud to be an actual Democrat that has been voting Democrat since 2006 when I could first vote. I'm not politically carpetbagging the way someone else up here is. And so we need to make sure that we're holding people accountable. There's a quote by James Taylor that goes, "I can't believe what you say because I see what you do." Actions speak much, much louder than words, and all we've been hearing up here is just a bunch of words because those actions do not match those words. And so whenever you're looking for a next state representative, look at our records. Look at the people who have gotten things done. I have been in policy for over 10 years, have numerous legislative successes under my belt that have helped millions across this country. So I'm coming in to fight for you. I'm not coming in to answer to big donors. I didn't come from a wealthy background to where my parents could help get me large donors to cut me big checks. I come from a football coach and a nurse that come from small town beginnings out of a county where Heavenville is. And so if you're looking for someone who comes from your background, who understands your struggle, who has had their bank account be the negative numerous times and had to fight with Wells Fargo to give me back my $35, then I'm the person for you because I understand the struggles that a lot of our people deal with.
Thank you, Mr. Holguin. I'll hand it over to Mr. Murray.